it's really exciting that this has gone, so well, and thanks to all our alumni that have been part of the conversations, and to those of you who have participated. Hopefully you've caught more than just one of them. My name is Linda Rourke, and I've been hosting these. It's been a real pleasure. I am a graduate of the broadcasting program at Mohawk College just a few decades ago, and I'm back now working for the Mohawk College Foundation. So it's really awesome to be able to participate like this and connect with others and just give back to our community, because we've got so many incredible alumni right across this country, across the world. So I'd like to introduce you now to Christopher Speck, who graduated from the Health, Wellness, and Fitness program. He's a personal trainer as well as a personal chef. And I think this is really great. And that, of course, is our topic of conversation today, creativity in the kitchen. And you've got a couple of businesses going, but your in-home chef is one of them, Chris. And I'll let you talk a little bit about yourself and your experience at Mohawk, and then we'll get into some of the cool questions we've got ahead of us.
Yeah, definitely. So like Linda said, I graduated in 2017 from Mohawk. I did the 2-year health, wellness, and fitness program there, as well as being a varsity athlete for the men's volleyball team. So, I mean, just to get into what I do on a daily basis, yeah, I created a company called Your In-Home Chef. And basically the idea behind it was coming out of post-secondary at Mohawk. I had been working in restaurants for about 10 years as like kind of the school job to pay tuition and all that kind of stuff. And in doing so, I kind of fell in love with cooking with real food, like scratch food, not so much the corporate chains. I started there, but then I went into the more of the fine dining and the scratch made cooking. So that's where my passion for food came in. But then upon graduating, I got into the personal training line, which a lot of the students in that program get into. But from there, having that kind of that passion for food, and then being in the gym with your clients, I was saying to the ladies earlier, some of your clients are in the gym with you maybe only 2-3 times a week, when there's another 150 some hours in the week. And if they don't make changes there, you're really not going to see results, right? Like the training helps you get stronger, more mobility, more flexibility, all those good things physically. But if you don't change the way you eat, especially if your choices are, and we'll get into what those choices are later, you're not going to see, weight loss or body composition changes or those kind of external and internal results that you're looking for. So that's why I kind of wanted to bridge the gap between what happens when someone comes to see you in person and then what they do with the rest of those hours in the day and their week and all that. And I wanted to attack it more personally from that nutritional standpoint, because I think that really is more important in the grand scheme of things. Not everyone needs to train or exercise in order to live. You have to eat to live, right? And if what you're putting in your body isn't helping you live with longevity, then it's doing the opposite, right? And it's breaking you down. So that was the reason behind kind of the creation of going with the food route, as well as the training, but not just the training.
Yeah, it's really brilliant, Chris. And I mean, we hear very often, if you listen about nutrition and exercise, the experts, a lot of them still say that it's 80% of what we put into our body, is the better result. But 20%, yes, we need to work our bodies and we need to have that regime going as well. But it really truly comes down to what we eat. And a lot of us don't eat well.
Right.
So let's talk about that, because we're all cooking from home, right? Restaurants are still closed. I know that there's some, as we move into phase 2, there's some things that are opening up a little bit more, and patios and things. But I think, it'll be a slow start before people are really comfortable getting out to eat. So they're making meals at home. They're snacking a lot more. They have easy access to their kitchen, and they're probably doing a lot of things that they shouldn't be. And let's talk about how we can get inspired, but how we can be inspired to cook healthy, nutritious meals.
Right. Yeah, it's a good point about the restaurants too. I love the restaurant game, and not just like the cooking part. I love the entire atmosphere of kind of like serving people and interacting with people in that sense. But it's important to note, like even with, a lot of places are open their patios so that people can stay, distance outdoors and that kind of thing. But you have to think about what they're serving on these patios, right? Like a lot of the times their menus are going to be reduced because they're just getting back into the swing of things. And a lot of these places just order kind of like the pub style food, right? Like the burgers and, you know, the sides in that sense, but it's not really the freshest or the most, the least processed ingredients. So in that sense, like, even though I love the restaurant game, I don't really eat out at them unless it's like occasions and stuff like that, or I make the conscious choice based on what the menu offers. But yeah, being at home for especially more time, right? Like normally we're out doing our jobs, doing whatever, and you're not at home during the day. But being at home, I know at least for me, like one of my first things I do when I get home from somewhere, I go and open the fridge, right? It's like the first thing I do. I'm like, okay, you know, what can I eat? And that was just habit from, you know, growing up, always being an athlete. I was just being hungry. But it wasn't until I really dove into like what my body actually needed versus what I thought I was supposed to be doing based on like what other people would tell me, you know, it takes some time to really figure out how to listen to your body, in the sense of like your body will tell you what it needs. And oftentimes we just disregard that because our eyes tell us a different thing.
So would you say it's key, like when, you know, and that's what so many of us do. We open the cupboard or we open the fridge, and whatever's in there, we're going to gravitate to. And it's usually that quick food, like the quick fix, right? Because often we wait too long. We're super hungry, so we just want to grab something. Can you give some tips on what we should be putting in the fridge and in the cupboard so that when we do go to eat, we are actually feeding ourselves really well?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one too. It's usually convenience is what we err to. And for me, like when it comes to willpower, like I've learned over the years to be more disciplined and to not just like grab and go kind of thing. But still, even to this day, like if there's something in those cupboards or in that fridge that isn't necessarily good for me, but it's quick, I'm going to eat it. Like it's there staring at me in the face, I'm going to eat it. So like the number one thing that I did was just when you do your groceries, or whoever does the groceries in the family, to not buy the things that you know don't serve you, right? Like it's easy to just go walk through those center aisles in the grocery store where everything has an expiry date that's like 2 years from now, right? And just pick those things up because you know, okay, when I'm in a crunch, that's what I'll go to. But we go to it far more often than we need to, right? So it really takes either a lot of discipline to have those things in the house and not eat them every day. But the best thing would just be to reduce the amount of like those quick snacks that you do buy, because then it forces you to eat or to make snacks that are healthier for you, which does take a little bit of time and planning. But in the long run, if you can get into that habit of buying fresher ingredients and then making those snacks yourself, a good one would be like dips and stuff like that. A lot of people buy dips for their crackers, the vegetables and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of those dips just have added sugars, they have preservatives. You read the ingredient lists on those things, and half of the ingredients are things that you can't really pronounce. And if they sound like a chemical, it is a chemical, and it's not really good for you. It's just an additive to help preserve that particular item for longer. So a lot of those like quick snacky kinds of foods, we need to start to prepare them in advance, right? So that when you do need that quick snack or fuel during the week, you're busy, you're out doing whatever, or you're not busy and you're just constantly going to the fridge because you're at home, that needs to be available so that you don't choose, you know, the things that are just sitting there that have a shelf life of however long, right?
Yeah, so like pre-chopped vegetables and just have them easy to access. You know, you hear that all the time, like you do your shop and then cut everything up, cut up cauliflower or broccoli, and so that when you need something, you can go and grab it. I love to talk about the dips and things because, and the salad dressings and things you buy are just full of all kinds of stuff. You can easily make those things at home. What do you suggest having to make a dip or a dressing so that it's healthy and not overly time consuming? It doesn't have so many things that people are like, I'm not going to be bothered to make that.
I'll just break down dressings for you, or any kind of like marinade. Very simple to make, and it doesn't take a lot of ingredients. Dressings, in essence, are just whatever you use to flavor it, and then it's just emulsified with oil, right? So if you want something that's kind of got a garlicky, spicy flavor, you add garlic, you add your spice, whether it's like chili powder, Tabasco, some kind of spicy spice, turmeric works well as well. You mix those up in a blender, and then all the dressing needs to finish is emulsify, which just means adding oil slowly while continuously mixing. So you have your blender on a low setting, all your flavors are in there, some garlic, some lemon juice, some different spices. Then you just add your oil and emulsify, and then that way the flavor and the spices won't separate. Or if they do, you just shake it up again, but that'll keep in your fridge for a while, especially if you add vinegars to kind of add that little bit of acidity. Vinegar is a preservative in itself, right? So that'll keep in the fridge for, a couple of weeks, or you can even freeze it and then thaw it afterwards. So the freezer is kind of your best friend when it comes to keeping fresh foods for longer. Yes, okay, it's coming out of a freezer, but would you rather something come out of a freezer that's way better for you than something that's just sitting in your fridge or your shelf that has a shelf life of 2-3 years, right? One thing I love to use as a dip is hummus. I make my own hummus, and
Which isn't too difficult to do, right? It's a pretty simple recipe.
Very easy. I could list it off for you if you just want a plain hummus. I use garlic, lemon, chickpeas, cumin, salt and pepper, chili flakes, oil, and then I finish it with tahini, which is sesame seed paste. All that just goes into one blender. You zip it up. You make sure you mix it in well, and away you go. You have a big tub of hummus that you can split in half, put one in the freezer for the next week. But it's just an easy way to have something on hand, and then you just use your fresh produce to eat it with.
A lot of times people go to salt as their flavor item, right? Like putting a lot of salt into things, and we know that a high sodium diet is not good. What can you suggest there for people to kind of wean themselves off of using salt for flavor and finding some of these other beautiful things, including herbs, right? Another good way to add flavor.
Yeah, salt's a funny thing because it depends what it's in. Like salt in, again, like chips and like the stuff that's like in popcorn and those kind of snacks that are already made for you, it's heavily processed, right? So the body isn't going to break down or absorb the good nutrients of that salt. But if you're always cooking and you're making stuff at home, adding salt's not a big problem, right? Because it's not already in the ingredient that you're using. There's no salt on the fresh chicken that you just bought or on the fresh vegetables that you bought. So you can add your own salt, and you can use a higher quality salt. I use like the Himalayan pink salts, which are a lot better absorbed, and they just have different properties that are better for you. But generally I don't use salt unless it's on meat, because it serves a purpose when you're cooking. Salt is very abrasive, and it helps break down the flesh of meat. But what that does is it helps absorb the rest of the flavors that you're using, those spices and those herbs, right? So it just really depends where the salt comes from. Again, I don't eat very much that's that preserved snack. So my salt just comes from me adding it, which means I know exactly how much is in the food that I'm eating, right? When you buy something and it's pre-marinated or it's pre this, that, and the other, you don't really know, right? They might tell you. Most of those labels are lying, right? Unless you really truly want to know yourself, you add it yourself. But yeah, salt's not the end of the world. But we are used to that flavor. Like especially the Western society, our taste buds are used to that salty flavor that makes our mouth water because of when we eat out at restaurants, because of when we pick up those processed snacks when we're on the go, because of X, Y, Z of not doing it yourself. So we're accustomed to that saltiness. And it really depends on your lifestyle as well. Like smokers put tons of salt on everything because their taste buds have broken down from smoking. So they feel like they need more salt in order to taste the food that they're having, right? But you can substitute some of that salt for just more fresher flavors, like you were saying earlier, herbs. Since the start of this summer, we've grown a lot of our herbs here: basil, mint, oregano, the list goes on. And you can, like my grocery store, I just walk out on the back deck and I'm like, okay, I want this, and this, bring it back in, and there's my fresh food. And then all I have to do is go and buy the protein in that sense. So it's just about trying new things. When I try to talk to people about, new ideas in the kitchen, it's like, well, have you tried it? No. Okay, well, why don't you go and try it and see if you like it, and experiment, right? A lot of people are afraid to experiment because they're like, I'm not a good cook. Well, how do you get good at cooking?
Yeah. Or they think they're not going to like something, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, I don't like that. Well, when's the last time you tried it?
Exactly.
Like even cilantro, for example. Some people didn't like it, but as you try and experiment with different flavors, and I often think too, it's what it's combined with. And, basil, mint, cilantro, your sage, oregano, all of which you can get out in your grocery stores right now.
Yeah.
And even your flower places, it's a wonderful way to bring freshness in and flavors. I really liked, the comment about just, unless you've got really good willpower, don't have a lot of the bad stuff in your house. It is like, if it's there, you're going to eat it. I think so many of us, most of us would say, yeah, that's what's going to happen. So what are the things that we should avoid throughout the day that will negatively impact our energy levels? Because a lot of times what we're eating to boost our energy level is actually what's depleting our energy level.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's a lot of the same stuff. So there are generally 5 big inflammatory properties that are in foods that make us feel that way, that make us feel slow, lethargic, bloated, all those things. And they are gluten, dairy, corn, soy, and sugar, added sugar. Those are the 5 things that our body gets really inflamed when we intake. And a lot of people, when they do cut those things out, they see like a pretty drastic weight loss just because they've reduced the inflammatory response in the body. I've seen people that cut out those 5 things: gluten, dairy, corn, soy, and sugar, and they've lost between 5 and 20 pounds in a pretty short amount of time, like 7 days to a month, right? And that's just the inflammatory response. That's not even really weight loss, right? That's just your body not having to fight so hard to break down those inflammatory properties in those foods. So it really starts there. Anything that doesn't include those 5 things, you're better off consuming. And then everything else stems from that, right? Like if you're constantly trying to break down those 5 inflammatory responses, the body has to fight so hard that it takes away from the rest of your being, your vitality. Your sleep suffers, your skin suffers, right? Our skin is our number 1 detox organ, right, in our body. Energy levels, you're kind of on a roller coaster versus keeping an even keel. It tricks you into making you believe you're hungry again before you actually are, right? Because the more that you consume those 5 inflammatory ingredients, the more you crave them, right? We have bacteria, we have gut flora, we have tons of things going on internally. And the more we feed it those inflammatory things, the more it craves it, right? So that's why it's very difficult when people start kind of like a healing process when it comes to their food, is they find it really difficult within those first 2 weeks to a month to stay away from gluten, dairy, corn, soy, and sugar, because it's usually at a certain point every day that they've conditioned themselves to have that snack, usually late at night. A lot of people are late night kind of snacky bingers. And that's the worst time to consume that stuff, because as soon as you consume it, you're going to bed, right? So you're not helping to break down by burning off calories. and continuing your metabolism. You're just laying down horizontally and doing nothing, right? So all of those things then get stored in the body as excess fat, as, you know, adipose tissue in between all of your organs, which just slows you down in general, makes you feel brain fog, makes you break out, makes you lose sleep, all of those negative responses. So the big five is gluten, dairy, corn, soy, and sugar for the last time.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's great for people to be able to take that away with them and try it, because I know, you know, a lot of people don't have no idea what affects their body. And so having something to kind of try and see if it'll help. And those ingredients are in so many of the pre-packaged, pre-made things that you're already saying stay away from. So, you know, we kind of covered off a bit about the healthy snacks, like make a hummus, make, you know, a homemade dip of some sort that you can have with some vegetables. Yeah, salsa is a perfect one, right?
Fresh fruit, unsalted nuts, like you make your own trail mix. You can add some like raisins or cranberries in there for a little bit of that fruit carb. Same thing, you look up a couple recipes on like healthy protein bars or just energy bars. A lot of them are made with dates, which have a high carb or glucose, natural glucose content. So those are things that'll give you like a quick spike of energy, but without the crash, because it's not a refined processed sugar, right? So date bars with like a lot of seeds and nuts in them are a really good idea for like that grab and go. And then I have muffins on here, but it really depends on the muffin. Like you have to use gluten-free flour or like an almond flour if you want to stay low carb. And then I always use like shredded vegetable in them, like shredded carrot. So like a morning glory muffin, a carrot muffin would be another good way to kind of store some snacks, and you can keep those in the freezer and pull them and they'll thaw out within a couple hours. So that would be my recommendation based on healthy, fresh snacks.
And this time of year, like, I mean, dinner, people are like, oh, what am I going to do for dinner again? But there's so many different combinations you can do with salads with your, you know, your really good greens, whether it's kale, spinach, arugula, and then adding in herbs like basil and things for flavor. And then what can you maybe suggest a couple of easy things, or maybe you have other ideas of some easy recipes that people can do so that they don't get bored, they stay a little bit inspired, and they're really eating food that's good for our bodies and, you know, really giving us what we need.
Yeah. The way I kind of spun this one in my brain was to stay inspired is there are so many different ways to cook the same ingredient. So I'll take meat for the first example. Like if you take a chicken breast, how many different ways can you cook a chicken breast? You can bake it straight in the oven, like if you marinated it with some oil and some seasonings. You can barbecue it. You can pan sear it. You can chop it up and make tenders with it. You can poach. So you see what I'm going with. Every different kind of protein, there's probably 5 or 6 different ways that you can prepare that certain protein, right? So that in itself changes the texture of the protein, changes the flavor of the protein. So you could have chicken 5 days a week, cook it 5 different ways, and go, wow, I had a different meal every single time, even though I just had chicken every time, right? So we have to get a little bit more creative in our preparation method. And then your sides, you just change up your spice profiles. Right? You can have roasted potatoes that are, you know, spicy with like chili flakes and chili powder and that kind of stuff. Or you could have more of like that herb earthy tones with like rosemary and thyme and garlic, lemon juice and that kind of stuff. So it's really just changing up the spices that you use and then the method of cooking that particular item.
It does sound so simple, and it's so great when you put it simply, right? Because we just don't think of it that way. Like I never thought of taking chicken. Yeah, there's so many different ways that you can cook it that gives it different texture, flavor, taste, and everything, right? You can take a look at so many different meats, and then you've got your fish and everything on top of that. So any specific ingredients you highly recommend people should have in their pantry, or in their fridge?
Yeah, I made a list because I could rhyme them off from the top of my head, but garlic for sure. if you like garlic. Most people like garlic, and it usually goes in. It's pretty much the first thing that goes into any kind of marinade or any kind of sauteing, if you're sauteing your vegetables and that kind of stuff. Garlic and onion, for sure. A couple different qualities of oils, right? So you can have like your olive oils. They tend to be a little bit more rich. And if you don't want to take away from a particular flavor of something, you would use more of just like your canola or vegetable oil. So different oils will give different tastes. Coconut oil is a really good one to get. You can get like big tubs of them for pretty cheap. And it goes much further than the other oils. You need much less coconut oil because its heat threshold is higher. So you can heat it on a higher temperature before it burns. And it kind of, it separates and it covers your food a lot more than the other oils do. They get absorbed pretty quickly. Vinegar, a flavored vinegar. I wouldn't say white vinegar. I usually just have balsamic and apple cider vinegar on hand. Those things are really nice in dressings. Like one of my staple dressings is a little bit of oil, a little bit of balsamic vinegar, and a little bit of honey. And that's it. You have like your acidic sweetness, and then you can put that on any sorts of greens. Sometimes I add a little bit of fruit to that salad. Cucumbers, like a pretty mild taste, right? And it all absorbs that dressing. And the sweetness is a nice touch. A lot of people find. Of course, the pink salts I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And like I was just saying, the sweeteners that you use in anything, stop buying sugar. Use honey or use maple syrup, pure maple syrup, right? Those are enough to sweeten any dish, and they give a much nicer kind of finish to, say, like you're glazing some sauteed vegetables for a stir fry, right? Just a tablespoon of maple syrup cut in with like your soy sauce or whatever it is, your gluten-free soy sauce, just cuts that really salty flavor, gives it that sweetness, and that kind of, it's maple syrup, right? It's got that nice finish to it, and it's almost like a sticky glaze. And then lemon juice and your favorite spice mix. So you can either buy it like a pre-mixed spice at the store, or you can make your own, and kind of, it's a lot cheaper to buy spices in bulk in those like yellow bags that you see in the spice aisle rather than in like the shakers. Those are a lot more expensive. But if you buy the spices in bulk and then just mix your own into one of those shakers, you're laughing.
I can't believe we're at 1 o'clock already, Chris. I think we could just keep talking. There's
there's
just so much to this, right? It's a massive discussion to have. I just wanted to say, one of the comments was everything in moderation, including moderation. I thought that was good. Another person said, thank you so much for today's session. Love learning more about creative ways to overcome processed foods. Please, if nothing else, right? Like try to eliminate processed foods out of your life. And they said, thanks so much. Very informative. They had to head out for another webinar. So thank you for this great information and for participating and just, really breaking it down to make us think about what we're putting into our bodies. And I think that's what's really, really, really important to walk away with, right? And hopefully we can do this again. And don't forget that, that Chris has his company. You can always check your in-home chef. I want to thank everyone there you go. Love it. And congratulations to you on that too. Entrepreneurship. Woo. I love it. So good luck. And thanks again for joining. I want to thank you for spending time. If you want any of the past Thoughtful Thursday webinar recordings, you can reach out to alumni for that. It was building community in a time of social distancing. We did navigating a remote workplace, sustainability in everyday life, healthy habits in a new normal, and of course, creativity in the kitchen. So just try different things, be creative, get some exercise in, but really pay attention to what you're putting into your body, because that does help the mind as well. And we know how important it is to have a healthy mind. So thanks so much for joining us today. Chris, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. And we're just a day away from the weekend, so enjoy that as well. Thanks so much.